Three, two, one. Well, day one of spring practice is in the books. Nate Johnson's campaign for QB1 is off to a great start. He is ready to lead in this Vandy football team. Looks different. Let's go. Let's buckle up. Here we go.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Welcome to the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. If you knew me from back then, I was a former Rivals employee, and now I'm a high school football coach as well. So glad to have you in on today's episode. Nate Johnson and the quarterbacks are off to a great start. Looks like they are ready to lead, and this offense is implementing their new look scheme. Looks like they're constructing the offense around the quarterback's running ability. Jerry Kill is making an immediate impact as well. So this is going to be exciting to talk about. And in basketball, one thing's for certain, whoever lands the job needs to be able to hit the portal hard. You need to get Tyron Lawrence and Jason Rivera-Torres back out of the portal and be able to add some pieces as well. Can Chris Mack possibly be that guy? We're going to answer that as well. So thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, let's get started, shall we? Nate Johnson is probably the biggest storyline of Vandy's spring practice because presumably he is sitting at the top of the quarterback depth chart. He was the first transfer in. Blaise Berlowitz also is a mid-year enrollee, and then Diego Pavia is coming in the summer. So these two are really going to kind of set the stage of what Pavia needs to do to be able to win the quarterback one job. So, and honestly speaking, outside of some normal quarterback day one of spring practice type rust situations, I think Vandy is in great hands with whoever they pick at quarterback. And, Nate Johnson and Blaise Berlowitz had a really, really solid day. Blaise Berlowitz actually was throwing the ball pretty well, pretty effective. If I'm being honest, he's probably the best. The best one today. That's not to say that he's going to be the best one overall, but I still think, and I still believe that Nate Johnson has just as good of a chance as anybody, because I think, one of the things that was on display was his powerful arm, and he was able to showcase that a little bit. When you look at the leadership, I mean, just kind of watching him in some of the clips that they showed. Obviously, I wasn't able to be at practice because I have a job at school, and they practice during school, so I can't get out there. I would love to get out there and watch, but just watching some of the clips and just kind of watch how he carries himself. He's A, extremely confident. B, it appears that he has, and you can kind of tell somebody's charisma a little bit. You can kind of tell just they have some sort of it factor. And I think my prediction is going to be that he has that. I mean, I think that's going to give him a leg up because that it factor, I think, is going to be able to breed confidence in his receivers and his offensive line. And he's going to be able to do a lot of great things because of that. Not saying Blaise Berlowitz doesn't have that, which he does. He has more of the physical tools right now, whereas, Nate Johnson has a little bit more polishing to do, and he'll do that over the course of spring practice. So that's not necessarily a problem. I think Tim Beck is done a really, really good job of developing him. He did a really good job of developing Diego Pavia, who, for all we know, was really raw at New Mexico State. So there's a history there. So I think this, it's going to be fun to watch this team kind of grow and kind of blossom because you're doing so at probably you're doing just that, and this is going to kind of personify the group as a whole, because the quarterback is the most high profile position, and as they grow, the team will grow. As they develop, the team will develop. As they get confidence, the team will get confidence. and you'll start to see this thing just kind of go, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch, because I think you can, you'll be able to, again, just be able to see this thing as you won't recognize this team is what I'm trying to say. And I'm very much excited about it. And one of the things that honestly is going to be fun, and I think a huge asset, is having Jerry Kill on as a consultant, because he was working with the offensive line today. And I think that's important, because you have a new scheme. You have a guy that's not really he's obviously he's been in football for a long time, so he's familiar with offensive line and scheme and technique, and he's probably run all of these concepts. But I think having Jerry Kill being able to float around at practice, and he worked with a lot with the offensive line today, and that's extremely valuable too, because you're able to have a guy that's going to translate what Tim Beck wants and be able to kind of help him gear his practice, gear his technique, gear his teaching and installs around how Tim Beck wants to do certain things, because these two work together. He's the liaison. Tim Beck is in charge of the offense. Jerry Kill is kind of that middleman of saying, hey, Coach Kleenakis, this is how this is how he wants to teach it. This is, I'm going to work with you. We're going to be hands-on. And one of the things that was noticed was there was a big presence in the quarterback run game. So to tie it all back together, they're taking it. It drives my point home that I was making when Tim Beck got hired, and at several points throughout the winter, about what you're going to possibly see out of this offense based on what I know about him in his previous stop. But it appears that he is molding this offense around the talents of his quarterback, and not trying to mold his quarterback around the talents of this offense, and I think that's a very important piece to it, because a lot of times you get some of these football guys that are just very, very stubborn, and they just want to do things their way because, hey, this is my way. This is how we've always done it, and, it's college, we can recruit, and, but sometimes you get into a situation where you can't necessarily do that. And if you have a coach that's really good at adjusting on the fly, it makes it really, really simple to be able to do that. So Jerry Kill working with the offensive line helps them understand that, hey, what's going on behind us will give me a better understanding of why I need to block this certain way. Why I need to fit up on the defenders this way. Why we're making the calls that we're making on combos. Why are we doing what we're doing? Because, okay, I understand now, because I have a better understanding of what's going on behind me in the backfield, and I have the guy that's there to explain it all, and I don't have to figure it out on the fly by myself. It's truly kind of a team effort, and having him as a liaison is extremely valuable, because Tim Beck can do what Tim Beck does well, develop quarterbacks and oversee things. Jerry Kill can kind of be the guy that bounces back, to the receivers, over to the offensive line, working with the tight ends and all that stuff, and being able to translate all that so that when the quarterback's making his calls, the line's making his calls, they all understand each other. And if you have that, your offense is already better. Just on that, just on the pure communication aspect of it, it is all better. And so to kind of tie all this together, to kind of connect all this together. So why am I saying, Nate Johnson, he's off to a great start. And I think that's kind of the story of it, because you're seeing the offense kind of develop around him a little bit and his abilities. And you'll see it with Diego Pavia too, because they have very similar running abilities. But you're starting to kind of see, okay, well, we've got this really good runner that can throw, has a powerful arm, just needs to hone in on his accuracy a little bit and develop that some. But you're starting to see kind of this thing take shape a little bit. And I'm really excited to see what the run game is going to look like, because what I know Nate Johnson can do based on what I saw at Utah, in the flashes that I saw at Utah, I know that this run game is going to be really dangerous, and this team's going to be really dangerous. So I'm excited to see it. But yes, football spring practice off to a great start. And the quarterbacks especially, I think, are in good shape because, outside of some of the normal stuff that you see with quarterbacks being inaccurate a little bit and having a little bit of rust, that's nothing to worry about. But they are off to a great start because I think everything's building around them and everything's being put in place to be able to effectively communicate and to get everybody on the same page. That is the reason why they're off to a great start. And I truly believe they're off to a great start. Nate Johnson's off to a great start because he's already flashing his leadership abilities. They're developing a run game around him. So this is all very, very good news for the quarterback position at Vandy. A couple things before we move over to basketball. Clark Lee spent all of his time with the defense, and that was to be expected. When you have Jerry Kill, you kind of have two head coaches. I'm sure they got together and had a powwow after practice, said, okay, this is what happened on offense. And, if Jerry Kill's interested, Clark Lee would tell him what's going on in defense. And they would just kind of debrief a little bit. So very positive day for the defense. I think that's going to be important. We'll talk about that here on future episodes, but like that's very, very good, especially early on when you're installing your defensive coordinator needs to be there full time. And if your defense coordinator is your head coach, unfortunately for the offensive side of the ball, that just needed to happen. So very good news there. You had, your punter just booming stuff. You had Martell Height and Junior Sherrill returning punts. This is all based on Billy Derrick from VandySports.com. He did some reporting. Again, I think I talked about it on yesterday's episode, but the whole logistics, the whole reasoning of the not having the whole reasoning of not having a formal spring game is because of the construction stuff going on in the stadium and just the logistical nightmare that it would be to have a spring game. So they're just going to kind of leave that alone and just wait until things get further along and then wait until they absolutely have to deal with the logistics of accessing the stadium. So very positive day, to say the least. And Vandy fans, you guys should be excited about where this team is at compared to what we ended the season with in December, or in November, or whenever the season ended. So be excited about it. Basketball. There's some things going on in basketball, and it's important to hire the right guy, and it's important that this guy immediately dives into the portal. A, pulls our own guys out, and B, gets some other guys as well. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. All right. Bettor Together. So Bettor Together is the first cooperative daily fantasy application. Bettor Together offers familiar experience for existing daily fantasy sports players with a social twist. You can play with a friend/teammate. Provides a sense of camaraderie and enhances the social experience of watching sports. It makes you realize that daily fantasy sports is fun alone, but it's like a lot of other things. It's better when you're doing it together or with friends. So you can show synergy from working together, gives you better chances of winning than going at it alone. The team. It's all about team, right? You can create a shared experience. You can split contest entries. It gives you better feeling of being connected even when you're apart. You can have there's a group chat feature that you can do a little bit of friendly smack talk with. You can stay connected with friends, things like that. It's like having a group chat without your phone going off 24/7. All right, it gives inexperienced players an immersive way to learn about daily fantasy sports, teaming up with and following the lead of experienced friends and teammates in a team contest. So, is your bracket already busted? Are you tired of the same old daily fantasy grind where you make a roster, cross your fingers and hope for the best, or losing the last leg of your pick'em entry? Bettor Together is, like I said, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent, and you can play with your friends, not against them. So you pick more or less on a real-time player on real-time player stats. You strategize with your partner to boost your odds and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend, join the social DFS movement. So download Bettor Together now from the App Store and sign up using promo code LOCKEDON for a chance to win your share of over $1,000 in cash prizes. Remember the code LOCKEDON because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. Get that? Better together. So there you go. There you go. Teamwork, guys. It's all about the teamwork. All right, next is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right. Welcome back. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. That's right. Screaming sometimes can stress you out. So Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So spring practice got off to a bang. We were glad to see that. I think a lot of people are kind of chomping at the bit to kind of see what this new look Vanderbilt team was going to be all about. So it was exciting to see. Day one just always kind of brings that excitement. Nothing really concrete happens or nothing really newsworthy happens typically. It's just good to see guys get out there and play the sport of football a little bit and get out there and run around and knock that postseason, knock that winter conditioning rust off and actually play the sport of football. So it's always good to see. But right now, and if you've been living under a rock, where Vanderbilt is mired in a coaching search, right? Jerry Stackhouse was let go late last week, and now they're searching through candidates. I know Shaka Smart has been mentioned as somebody that should be. I don't know if he's actually been contacted, probably not. But I think when you look at some candidates, Will Wade, Nashville native, I think he'd be great. Talked about him on Monday's episode. Yesterday's episode, Tuesday, featured Dusty May from FAU. I think I think he's the right guy. If you can get him as well, I think he would be another home run. I mean, FAU was in the Final Four last year. Who predicted that? Not me. Probably not a lot of people, which I think was probably the reason why most brackets were busted. So whoever the candidate is, and we'll talk about Chris Mack here in a little bit, but whoever the candidate is, I think we have to talk about goal number one right now because, the goal has changed, right? The goal was to bring an exciting brand of basketball back to Memorial Gym and make fans interested in coming to Memorial again, make Memorial Magic a thing, make that return a little bit because that's kind of worn off a little bit and that's kind of gone away. As you saw that Tennessee dominated the attendance, Kentucky dominated the attendance, all the away teams dominated the attendance just like they do with football, which, with basketball has been different. It's been kind of like that. Baseball has always been pro Vandy, but basketball has kind of seemed like that last sacred venue where Vandy fans still enjoyed coming to games and making a difference. This year was not the case. So change has been made. So goal number one was to get kind of all that going, but now with the news that now Tyron Lawrence is jumping into the transfer portal, I think your goal is shifted to whoever. I think whatever candidate you're looking at. I think Will Wade would be perfect. Dusty May would be perfect. Bucky McMillan, I think, would be a guy that could come in and instantly get those guys out of the portal. We'll talk about how and if Chris Mack can be that guy as well. But I think when you're looking at it, when you're evaluating your candidates, I think that's got to be kind of now almost your new number one, because you lost a sharpshooter, you lost a shooter in Jason Rivera-Torres, or that was kind of his big skill before he came in. But again, if you don't create good shots for yourself, that's going to be kind of wasted a little bit. But Tyron Lawrence was turning into your new wave of like the Ezra Mannion scorer, slasher, driver type guy. And he was very, very integral part of the team down the stretch. He was a huge part in that win against Florida. He's been him and Mannion have been kind of leading this team and putting them on their back and trying to keep them in these games. And they've been somewhat respectable despite some of the things that happen scheme wise, and some of the just, I don't know, there's other factors involved as to why those two couldn't lead it, but they can't get all the rebounds and take all the shots as well. So I think it just came down to a depleted roster and no adjustments being made. But that's not the point. The point is that the goal is to get those guys back out of the portal and then have them bring some guys with them. Like, I think it's shifted to being able to do that a little bit. So whoever this next guy is, and if Chris Mack's going to be that guy, we'll see. But you have to be able to pull guys out of the portal. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll talk about if Chris Mack can be the one to do that as we go. So stay tuned for that, and we'll talk about that. All right, Nissan. That's right. This week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one new team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the next, or further than the rest, I should say. Like any of the all-new Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. The Yukon Huskies can be only described as an Armada. This top-seeded team is as hardcore as it gets out there, so it's no wonder they've landed the top overall seed in the NCAA tournament. They're one of the favorites to win it all, despite four of the six Power Six conference champions are standing in their way in the East region. Tough region. But the Armada is a tough vehicle as well. The Auburn Tigers can be described as the Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch, and they've really created a lane for themselves after claiming the top spot in the SEC. As they knocked off the Florida Gators in the SEC Tournament Championship, they're set to make a run in the Big Dance, the NCAA tournament. The Oregon Ducks are obviously this week's Nissan Rogue. The team absolutely surprised us all with a powerful performance in the final Pac-12 tournament, punching their ticket to the Big Dance. They say win life, go Rogue. That's exactly what the Ducks have done here. Can they finish that off and make a run in the Big Dance? We'll see. So take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. All right, finishing out here, segment number 3. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure you check out Locked On SEC as well. Just get on over there. Make sure you make them your second listen, Chris Gordy, and then we'll break down all the chances of the SEC teams in the tournament, and make sure that you get up to date on all your spring practice storylines around the conference. So make sure you check that out. All right, so goal number 1 now. New goal is to get portal guys, portal retention, and then some. All right, recruiting to the portal and using NIL and all that stuff. That all kind of comes with the territory, but you've got to get our guys. You got to get Lawrence and Rivera-Torres and those guys back out of the portal first. That's goal number 1. So is Chris Mack the one to do that? I think, I think I like him. I like him a lot for this job. And before these guys really started hitting the portal hard, I would have said that, like, I would have been jumping up and down and fired up about about this, the upside of this position. And I think he's a really, really good coach, great guy. I think he's going to be active in the community. But with things that have happened recently, my one worry with him is that I don't know that he'll be able to get those guys back, which especially Tyron Lawrence, you need him back. But I just don't think he's going to be able to pull a lot of big name recruits. And I think to be able to turn this thing around, you need to get at least one or two. You need to get those guys back and at least one or two. But that's my concern. Not to say that I don't think he's a good coach, or not to say that I wouldn't be fired up if he got hired, and not to say that he wouldn't be a good fit, because I think all of that is absolutely true. I think he would be an excellent addition to Vanderbilt basketball. But the concerns are there, obviously. But what does he do well? So I think when you watch a Chris Mack team, whether it was his Louisville teams or he spent a lot of time at Xavier, whether it was those teams, I think the thing that stood out to me that I like the most is the physical nature of his style of play. So like the other guys are more like ball movement, create good shots, fast paced. Not say they don't play physical, but that's not the name of their game. For him, it's physical, in your face type things. And maybe he comes in and maybe he gets more front court guys out of the portal, and maybe he recruits some guys and kind of reshapes this roster a little bit to kind of fit his style. Maybe he does that. I don't know. I still think you need to get Tyron Lawrence back out of the portal at least, because I think he'd be a good point man. But anybody that can have that physical style of basketball is right for me, because I think in the SEC, the grind of the SEC, you have to play that way. You have to be physical. You kind of have to take over games like that. And especially down low in the paint, those guys, they're just hitting each other, fouling each other. Every shot, it seems like you're going through a sea of arms. You're getting hacked. You're getting knocked down. You're getting mauled down there almost, and it's a battle every single possession down there in the paint. And you need a guy that kind of has that mentality so that the team has that mentality, right? So I think that's really, really good. Again, I think him being active in the community, he's going to garner a lot of support, which is great, because I think if you can garner a lot of support and you have fans that are wanting to come back to Memorial, that will help attract players too, because when Memorial is rocking, that place is fun to play. And one of the things I said early in January was that, like, that's what you need Memorial to be rocking if you want to recruit, because it's such a unique environment that, it can be kind of up there mentioned with some of the other unique venues in college basketball. So he's a good guy, good coach. He's probably not going to get in too much trouble. There's some upside there, but and I don't recall any issues between him and players. So I think he gets along with his guys. I think he also preaches, family, we're all in this together, and all the the cliched stuff. But I think there's some true merit to it in the way that you do it, not just cheesy slogans and saying, hey, we're going to be together, kumbaya, in the press conference. I think there's got to be some true connections happening. A lot, any good coach in any sport will tell you connection is key. The Vandy women's team is in the tournament because they had connection. They're not the most talented team in this bracket by any stretch of the imagination, but they have connectivity. They have that. They have team bond. They have team chemistry. They have a bond. They play well together. Dawn Staley does the same at South Carolina. Gino Ariama and Pat Summitt were big on team chemistry. Yeah, Mike Krzyzewski, he was successful. He was a nobody coming out of Army when he first landed at Duke, but he had those connections. He made those connections on the recruiting trail and signed that big first class, and the rest is history. Dean Smith, all these guys, they all have this they all have this overemphasis on connection. They want to make connections, and they want the guys to make connections with each other. There's some coaches out there that want to win, and they're all about scheme. Those don't usually work. It's the guys that can get your players to play together all as one. So Chris Mack, I think would be a really good hire. I think he would be somebody that you could get excited about. I worry about some of the recruiting stuff and some of the NIL stuff. He's spent time out of basketball recently, and I wonder if that's going to affect him at all. I don't know. Like, to jump back into this current landscape of what college basketball is about, it could be very, very difficult. I don't know. But I think he's somebody you could get excited about. I think he's somebody that I would probably put him third behind Will Wade and Dusty May, truthfully. And so more of this is going to unfold, and we'll talk about this all as it kind of unravels a little bit, and you see it kind of take shape. And but we're going to get into it. But man, time flies when you're having fun. And that's an idiom for you guys. I'm going to leave you with that. So until tomorrow, hope you have a great rest of your hump day. And we'll see you back here on Thursday's episode, where we'll talk more spring practice. We'll talk baseball, a little bit of basketball, coaching search. We'll try to talk about it all a little bit to finish out this week. But until then, anchor down.